This week on Coding with Carla, let's make our website mobile responsive. Okay, before we get started, I want to go over a couple of things that I've changed up. I've moved our entire website into CodePen. It's this amazing website online. It's free to sign up. I'll put a note in the show notes for you, and it'll allow you to just fork this right into your own account so that you can play with it and modify it on your own account without changing it on my account. So it's a really, really powerful program. I love CodePen. I recommend anybody that loves front end to play with it because it really gives you a great creative outlet. So I have everything in here. As you can see, it's the exact same website. And one of the things that is great about this is I built a project in CodePen, and you can, if you click this little button here, it'll say Open Live View, and I have it right over here, and we have the exact same website, but it's right through CodePen, as you can see here in my account. One of the really cool things is as soon as we make a change, so if I wanted to change a color or something, as soon as you make that change and you save it, you can just go right over here and you'll see the change right away. So now the color is blue. And if you don't like that change and you want to undo it, you can just undo the change. So CodePen is what I'm going to use from now on. Feel free to continue using Atom if you're comfortable with it and really don't want to open up a CodePen account. That's completely fine. What works in CodePen will work in Atom. So whatever works for you. I just really think that Atom or CodePen will be a great place to collaborate. So this is what we're going to use. Another thing that I changed up was the settings for our dogs here. I changed it from view width and view height to just plain pixels. They're square images, so there was no reason to try and get fancy with that. So here, the class of dog image, and then just targeting right into the images. I changed the width and height just to 175 pixels and left everything else the same there. So those are the things we've changed up. Let's go ahead and start making this website responsive, because as you can see, as we start to reduce the size down, things start changing and they start looking a little crazy. Like now we can hardly read this text. This is starting to get a little squished. Our trails just look ridiculous. Our dogs don't look bad, but our text here looks crazy and our footer looks okay. So there's a few things here that we're going to want to take a look at and fix up so that we don't have all this wonkiness. And let's go ahead and start right here with this section. So what we're going to do first, I'm here in the main CSS. You can see I've already got this all typed out, and we're just going to go over it bit by bit so that you can see what we're doing here. So under here, I've got this, it's marked out, code to set the website to respond based on resolution. And the first line that you're going to type for a media query, and a media query is just asking your browser if it's set to this max width or this min width, or there's a lot of different variations that you can use, then change some of the CSS to this. So it's sort of, it's just a query. It's just saying, hey, is the monitor this big? Then do this. Is the monitor this big? Then do this. So you always start a media query with @media. This is optional right here, the screen and. You don't have to have it. It'll still work. And I set the first max width to 1,000 pixels. So my monitor on my laptop is 1920 pixels wide. That's the resolution it's set at. And I'm saying just about half of that is where I want stuff to start changing. So here we've got, this is, if you remember right, we set this to banner. We have a class of banner and a div, and then we have other classes within that one. So let's go over here to our HTML and just take a look real quick. So we have the div class banner, and then this H1 and H3 tag are nested in there. So we're going to change this banner first. Oops. What I did is I just added a text shadow to it. That way, when it gets smaller, and you remember that text was rising up higher and higher, we couldn't read it anymore. So if we put a shadow back there, it's going to outline that text and then it'll be legible again. So let's go ahead and start there. Now I want to also show you, before I get ahead of myself, a media query is just like CSS. So you've got, for the footer, for this list footer, you've got the curly brackets encapsulating our rules. And we're going to do the same thing here for this media query. So you've got the opening and closing brackets for the media query, and then you have the full CSS rule for banner in there. So you've got two sets of opening and closing curly brackets, one for the media query and one for the banner class. So now once we do this and we have this saved, we should, as we reduce the size down, get a shadow here. So let's go ahead and start reducing this down. Keep an eye on it because there it is. So now you can see we've got a shadow under here. So as we go further up, now it's legible. Now you can read it. And that's exactly what we wanted. You can see as it goes away, right about 1,001 pixels. There it is. So now there's no more shadow. So that's how the query is going to work for all of our stuff. Oops. So let's go ahead and jump back over and just jump to our next one here. So now we've got this article and the paragraph, because if you remember, when we reduce the size down, this paragraph looks ridiculous. So we want to change these margins up a bit so that they work with the right size. So I've changed the margin. Here's the original margin up here. We had percentages. And now we're going to have just pixels, on 45 pixels on each side and 5 on the top and bottom. Let me actually go over one more thing real quick before we continue. So if you look at this article here with the paragraph, I've updated the margin. And if we go back up, you can see we have this font size and the text align. Because I haven't updated that in our media query, the font size and text align, it still stays as that rule for that paragraph. The only thing we're changing, we're saying everything in an article paragraph stay the same except for margin. We're changing that. We're telling the media query to look for margins. Everything else can stay the same in that CSS rule. So let's go ahead and save and run this. We'll go back over here. And now, oh wait, I didn't close that. Okay, so now we've got the 25% margins on the left and right. And as we reduce down, you should see it pop out. There we go. So you see how it changes? So it went from 25% on each side to just 45 pixels on each side. So you've seen it pop out. So it's easier to read on a device. And it just looks better. So the next thing we're going to do is start to look at these three trails here, because they start to look pretty crazy. And that's not what we want at all. So I'm going to go ahead, just cut this out here, paste it. Okay, so now we're talking about the columns, which are those three. And we probably should rename that, but we're not going to. So in our original, we have columns, display flex, we have padding, and we have margin of 0 and 200 pixels. So we need to update that to make it work a little bit better. So what we're going to do is we're going to add what's called flex wrap. And what that's going to do, that works with Flexbox. And if you remember, up here in our columns, we have it set to display flex. So that's still going to be a rule that's applied to columns, but now we're adding a rule in the media query. And we're telling it, if it runs out of space, start wrapping that underneath, sort of like text wrap. It'll stop after a while and just go to the next line. That's what we're doing with these columns. And then we've also changed the margins to 15 pixels and 100 pixels. Now before we go on to the next part, or before I show you what it looks like, let's go ahead and do trails, because that is part of this. So you can see here for the class of trails, I've updated the margin to 10 pixels all around. So because I only used the number once, I'm using it for the top, right, bottom, and left. And then I've changed the width of each one of those trail boxes to 90%. So let's go up to the original one. And so I've changed the margin. And then I've added the width, because you can see here there is no width. So that's where we're at so far. I've changed the margin to 10 pixels all around. And I've changed the width to 90%. So let's go ahead and save it and see how it looks. So that should have auto refreshed. So this looks okay. And now it's starting to get a little tight, and then right about here. There we go. So now you can see it's went out to 90%. And because all three of them can't fit, they started wrapping underneath of each other. And this is the look that we were going for here. So we are on the right track. Okay, so last but not least for this resolution, we're going to do the charity one. And what this is going to do is update this text here, because when we go down, it's super skinny. I mean, that looks crazy. Nobody wants to see that. So we're going to change our margins to 25 pixels on the top and bottom, and we're just going to change 40% on the left and right, when before we had 100 pixels on the left and right. So let's go ahead and save this. Once that's done saving, we'll go over here. Now let's look at our charity section. Okay, so there we go. We have it. We have modified the entire structure based on 1,000 pixel width resolution. The whole thing looks completely different from the desktop, which is great, because You want it to work for each device that people are on. So now you can see, if we go down to something closer to a phone, how crazy it still looks. So these are really narrow. The trails are really narrow. The dogs don't look bad. This is a little wide here. And there's just some little tweaks that we can make here. So let's go ahead and jump back over. Scroll down. Let's go ahead and get started on this part. So I'm just going to knock out the whole header first. So now I have a media query with a max width of 600. And this is going to take up any mobile device that you work on. So let's take another look here before I save that out. So one of the things about this is it's above, it's in the sky, it's white on top of white. It's a little bit hard to read. You can read it, but it's a little tough. So what I would do here is just change the color of that text. And that's what I did. I just changed it to orange. You can change it whatever color works. But that's all I did for the banner. Now for the title, which is the class of dog walking trails, is I updated the margins to 20 pixels all around, but I also reduced the font size down. Originally it was 3M. Now I'm just taking it down a little bit to 2.8M just to make it fit a little bit better. And I'm doing the same thing with subtitle, which is where can your dog take you? We're just going to reduce that font size down from 2M to 1.7M. And this is only going to happen at a media resolution at a max width of 600 pixels. Anything beyond 600 pixels will work with that max width of 1,000 pixels. So let's go ahead and take a quick look here, see what we did. So it's reduced down. You can see at 1,000 pixels. We get that shadow. Things start changing. Now once we get to 600 pixels, now we have orange text, and our text actually shrunk down just a little bit. So now it fits in the screen and it looks like it belongs there. It doesn't look like it's fighting to get out. So we've got the header all updated. That looks good. Now we're going to jump back into those trails. So now I've got the flex wrap. Actually, we can take that out of the trails because we already have it. We should be able to take it out. Let's see. We've got the margin set to 10 pixels. And in the trail, we have margin set to 10 pixels, which is actually already there. So let's go ahead and just take that out altogether. That should be okay. All right. So here we go. Let's go ahead and see how this starts to work out. So now you can see we've got quite a bit of margin on the left and right, and you don't really need all of that margin when you're on your phone. It's a very little field to play with, so you want to use up as much space as possible. So as we go down, you can see it'll start to pop. There we go. So now it's taken up the full width of your phone, just like you want it to. And this is just right where we want to be with our trails. So let's start to come out, and there you go. Let's look at our dogs here. So I don't have anything with the dogs. Let's just take all of that out. As a matter of fact, we don't need any of that because we took care of all of that with the media queries for the 1000 max width. So let's take one more look. So this is our website now. We have our full website. This is exactly what it'll look like on desktop. And now if you use it on a mobile device, you can see it's still responding down. Right when it pops to, now we've got this shadow, we know that it's responded. Everything still looks really clean, it looks really good. It's still working for all of our devices. And now we're down to cell phone range. And it still looks great for every device. We've come a long way in a short time. You've learned how to write HTML, you've written CSS, and now, after today, you have a fully mobile responsive website. Congratulations, I can't wait to see what we do next.